Hey, welcome back to YO Sourdough. Well, you've made your first sourdough starter. It's bubbling, it's alive, it's looking like Mr. Bubbles here. So the next question every beginner asks is, what do I got to do to keep this thing alive? And more importantly, what do I got to do to keep it alive without being a slave to it? Am I right? Well, today we're going to be discussing what ratio do you need to feed it to keep it at room temperature, how to recognize when it actually needs fed and not relying on a clock for feeding, how to properly refrigerate it, and more importantly, bring it back from the dead once you refrigerate it, and also how to preserve it for many years to come so you can have a backup option in case your sourdough starter goes bad. What does your starter need to stay alive and be healthy? Well, it's simple. Flour, filtered water, good temperature control, and time. When you feed it, it'll rise, and then it'll fall, and now it's hungry again. Once you get in the habit of identifying this, then you'll be able to simply look at it and know when it's hungry and it needs fed instead of relying on a clock for a feeding schedule. All right, and we're back with how to feed a room temperature starter. So whenever you're messing with a room temperature starter, you always want to feed it a 1-2-2 ratio. Scale, zero it out. We're going in with just 20, just like that. All right, next we're going to do our 40 water. Mix it up, just like that. Back on the scale. We're going to put our 40 flour in it, just like that. Mix it up. Get the scale out of the way, get the sides clean, just like that. Make sure you remember to put the rubber band back on there so you can track its progress when it's rising and falling and needs to be fed again. And this is the ratio you always want to use for a room temperature starter, a 2-to-1. You only want to use a 1-1 if you're baking with it every single day. If you're using a 1-1-1 for room temperature, it will slowly get weakened. So, counter versus refrigerator. This is where maintaining a sourdough starter becomes a little bit easier. You have two choices. One, keep it on the counter at room temperature and feed it twice a day. This is usually for bakers who bake every day on consistently. But for us weekend warriors, we probably would benefit more from the refrigerator, which means you only have to usually feed it once, maybe even twice a week, and that is it. Why the refrigerator? Because the refrigerator slows down the old fermentation process. It takes the sourdough starter, the yeast, a lot longer to eat that flour, which gives us a bigger window in how long we can stretch out the feeding process. So, one of the most important things to remember when you're putting your sourdough starter in the fridge is this. You must wait after you feed it. Do not feed your sourdough starter and then immediately put it in the fridge. It will actually hurt it. You have to wait at least 1 hour after feeding for it to start the fermentation process, and then you can put it in the fridge. Same thing applies. It will rise, it will fall. It might take a few days to do that. You have to keep an eye on it. So first things first, whenever bringing your starter out of the fridge to bring it back to life, the first thing you want to do is wait. You wait for it to come back up to room temperature before you do anything. Before you feed it, before you do anything, you wait a few hours before it to come back up to room temperature. After that, you can feed it a 1-1-1 or a 1-2-2. I would feed it a 1-2-2 to wake it up. Depending on how it performs from that, you might have to feed it multiple times in order to bring it back to original strength. That's why when you're storing your starter in the refrigerator and you want to bake with it, you need to plan ahead at least a day or two, because you got to wake the starter back up. Is what it is. So what if you forget about your starter and you leave it in the fridge for a couple weeks? It happens. Starters are very resilient, and you might be all right with just 1 or 2 feedings. However, if there's any pink color to it, if there's any mold, or if it has a very, very extremely foul smell, then you probably should start from scratch again, or we will show you how to preserve a good starter so in case that does happen, you're not up you know what creek without a paddle. Next up, we're going to show you how to preserve it and keep your sourdough starter for years, just in case you need it for a rainy day. Let's get into it. All right, so very easy, very simple. All we need is your good active starter, parchment paper. We're just going to take a very little bit of it out. Don't need all of it. And we're going to spread that as thin as we possibly can. Make sure you use a good active starter, not discard. In the past, I was told to keep this in the freezer to dry it out. Since then, I have learned not to put it in the freezer. Instead, you should put it inside your stove and let it dry out naturally. Now, if we fast forward into the future, this is what you will have. A dried up version of your sourdough starter, which you can then crumble and then you can take it in a nice little lock-a-lock container like this. So there you have it. My active real starter and my backup plan. Let's get it. So now that you know how to feed it to maintain it for room temperature, you know how to feed it and bring it back from the cold storage, and you know how to preserve it in case you want to take a break for a couple years, you're well on your way to being a sourdough baker. Congratulations. So on the next episode, we're going to look at the actual tools that are required to be able to make sourdough bread efficiently and effectively. More on that coming up next week.